Well, Ken, you had mentioned you're reaching out. Are you making headway with the Senate and the Assembly in terms of getting them to open their eyes and maybe taking a harder look at this?
Yeah, the legislation we had submitted, we'd submitted in the past, and they'd actually both passed it. Governor Pataki at that point had vetoed it. Governor Spitzer said he was in favor of it, but he was gone before he got to work on it. And if Governor Patterson is sincere in trying to reduce waste, he would sign it. Both the Senate and the Assembly are working on it, and I'm hopeful that it will happen. But assuming we have a Governor Cuomo, he has said in all his PR in his campaign that he wants to reduce government waste as well. So we're just going to keep pushing this as a way to mandate that you start looking at this waste. Because even though the governor has said to his commissioners, I want you to take a look at it, I think their attitude is, well, he's a short timer anyway, so if we just ignore him for a few more months, it'll go away.
From a political standpoint, is there a change in the wind with PEF this year in terms of how you're looking at the upcoming elections?
We're taking a closer look at what people actually say and do individually. It used to be that the leadership would make the decisions, and it still is to a large degree the leadership makes the decisions. The Speaker of the Assembly, the Majority Leader of the Senate, and those people, and the Governor.
3 men in a room.
The 3 men in a room, or 5 men, or however many men they want in that room. But those are the guys that make the decisions, and most of the other people don't have a whole lot of influence. But just going along and saying, well, we endorsed you before, you haven't done much, but you're all right, so we'll endorse you again. I don't think that's going to work this year. I think we're expecting people to stand up for what is right. And what's right, according to the judge that made the ruling on our court case when we were attempting to be furloughed, he said in that 27-page decision, it was one line, which went, if there are other options to deal with the budget that don't hurt people, you need to explore those options first before you implement the options that do hurt people. Which is why he threw out the furloughs, saying, well, you haven't explored all your options yet. Why are you jumping to this? We're going to look at every legislator and see where they stand on these kinds of issues. Are you really trying to fix the problem? Are you trying to not hurt people? Or are you jumping to a conclusion that, well, it's easier just to hurt some of these public employees because they don't matter? Some legislators have stood up and said laying off people is wrong, furloughing people is wrong. There are places that we can cut some waste. Other legislators have said, well, you know, public employees are getting too much. It's about time we cut them back. And then the vast majority of people have just been pretty quiet. And I think this is the year we're going to actually look at what people really say and do. And some people we will endorse, and some people we might try to endorse somebody else. And then other people we may just say, you know, you left us on our own this year, so we'll leave you on your own this year.
Do you think it will be hard to motivate your membership across New York in terms of getting involved in this year's elections?
It probably will. For one reason, I mean, it's like anybody else. We're just people. You know, so if there's a hot race that drags you to the polls, you'll vote for that race and you vote for everybody else too. Well, it's not a presidential year, so a lot of people aren't going to go to the polls anyway. In the governor's race, there's no primary, and the Republicans are pretty weak. So I don't think there's going to be much of a contest here. So if the only contest is now going to be your local elected officials, your senator, your assembly person, a lot of people may just not show up at all. And that could be a problem. So part of our plan is going to have to be to just motivate people to go there, regardless of what's going to be, you know, on the ballot. You need to go there and just make a stand and let people know that we care enough to vote for something. And then we'll have to just educate them as to what people have said and done on our behalf, and then now it's your turn to reciprocate.
I wanted to ask you to wind up our interview, 2 really short questions. If you had the ability to get in front of every New York resident, what would you tell them in terms of what PEF is, who your members are and the role you play in New York State?
Our members are the professionals that make sure New York operates the way it should every day and keeps people in the state safe. We patrol your streets looking after parolees. We are the medical teams in all the state facilities that care for your friends and relatives. We inspect the water you drink and the air you breathe. We make sure the food that you eat is safe. We take care of your parks. We help people find work. We do everything that is needed to make sure this state runs properly. And we do it not because anybody's getting rich, because most people are not. And despite what we hear about pensions, most people's pensions are comfortable, yes, but what they've traded for that comfort is lower salaries than they might get outside of state service. They're willing to do that because they have a commitment to wanting to be a public servant. That's what we are. Taxpayers pay us to do something, and we do it to the best of our ability. And the times where maybe we're not able to, it's often because management is not developing the policies to help us figure out what needs to be done, or they're not giving us the resources to adequately do what we do, or they're so short-staffed that caseloads have skyrocketed and we just can't do everything we need to do. But we're doing the best we can, usually under difficult circumstances. And what we're really asking for from the state is to just help us do our jobs better. Don't keep cracking a whip over our heads.
If you had that opportunity right now to deliver that message, I don't know how well it would go over with the governor, but those legislators, what would you tell them in terms of what PEF is trying to do to make things better in New York State, especially with some of the recommendations you've made?
We want to be partners. Many of my members have been around for 20 and 30 years. We're a lot of the best educated people in this state. I mean, I mentioned before, we're the engineers, the accountants, some of the people that help develop policy. We're the health and safety specialists. We're the fiscal analysts. We're the judges and lawyers that work for the state. We know how to save money. We know how to make the state work better. All that's really needed is for the state to ask us. Often when we say we have these ideas, the response we get back from management is, well, coming up with ideas and deciding how to best do things is management's role. You're the workers. Your role is to just do what you're told. Well, what we're being told is stupid and wasteful. We have a responsibility to at least point that out to them. And if they're going to at least listen to some of the ideas that we have, we can work together to implement them and make this state a better place. But it's only going to work if we're treated as partners and not just as tools to be used and then disposed of when you don't need us anymore.
Well said. Ken, I want to thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us today, and continue the good fight and continue to pound on the message, and we'll help try to get that out too.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.